Hey all, welcome to Parker's Reefs. On today's episode, we're going to get some water into my brand new soft coral system, get it running, and get this cycle started. Alright, thank you for joining me on yet another episode of Parker's Reefs, and as touched on in the intro, today I plan on getting some water into my soft coral system and getting the cycle started. Now, that has primarily come about because I placed an order with my local fish shop down at Deer Park Aquarium for a few of the key components that I needed to get this system running. Firstly, with all of my reef tanks, I love to run a sand bottom. Bare bottom just does not look right to me, so I've gone for some Aquaforest Bio Sand, which I have to say, I did not think I liked the look of, looking at the pictures online and even looking at the sand in the bag. But after a visit to Lifestyle Aquariums and I saw Alvaro's incredible display tank there that was using the Aquaforest Live Sand, I quite liked how white it was. If anything, maybe even a little bit unnaturally white. But this tank, I need to remember that I'm looking to stock it full of leather corals and other soft corals, which often can have a little bit of a sandy color. So I need the sand to be very, very white to give that contrast. And I think this sand's going to be perfect for the job. Now, next up, I'm going to need a return pump, and I often tell people that I think the return pump is the most critical part of your system and something that you absolutely cannot skimp on. Now, whilst the budget for this system has been brought back a fair way after spending quite a bit on the tank itself, I did not want to skimp on the quality for the return pump. And whilst something like an Abyss was a little bit out of budget and also a little bit too big for the tank, I did want to put a quality pump in there, and I've opted to go for the Reef Factory Base 3000 pump. And I've done that for a few reasons. Firstly, it's a very slick looking pump. Secondly, it produces 3,000 liters per hour with no head pressure. Now, obviously, once you put a pump into a tank and it has plumbing and it's got to lift the water from down in the sump up to the display, you lose a little bit of that. But even still, at say 2/3 of that flow at 2,000 liters per hour, I've still got ample flow for the tank. For those that are new to the game, you want your return pump to turn over somewhere between 4 times and 10 times of your entire tank volume of water every single hour. So in this system here, the UN Systems R60, which has a combined volume of both the display and the sump of 174 liters, that means I need a return pump to produce somewhere between about 700 liters per hour and about 1,800 liters per hour. Well within the spec of the base pump 3000, and being a DC controllable pump, I can control that in increments of 5% steps, which gives me really fine control over the flow of that pump. The other reason why I really liked it is, despite being a brand new, very modern style pump, which has all of the connectivity under the sun that all of these Wi-Fi enabled devices do, it also has a controller with a display and a button, which allows you to cycle up through the flow and then back down through the flow, and also check that display to get an instant status update on what percentage of power it is running at. Because despite being a tech junkie, I do firmly believe there are some devices that just do not need to be controlled by an app, and I cannot think of anything more suitable for that category than a return pump. I cannot imagine wanting to control my return pump from an app, particularly when I'm not right in front of the tank. I think return pumps are the sort of things you need to be a little bit tactile with, press buttons, look at flow, make changes that way rather than fiddling about with your phone when you've got wet hands and things like that. So with all of that in mind, I decided to go for the Reef Factory Base 3000 pump. I've never actually played with one before. This will be my first opportunity, but from what I've seen, it looks like a great unit. Now, next up on my list of items that I've asked Dave to order in for me is a heater. Now, whilst I do have a few spare heaters laying around the house here, I wanted to put all brand new equipment on this system. And with that in mind, I've opted to go for an Aquaone titanium heater, which fills a category really, really nicely of being a very high quality product while still being incredibly affordable. The 300 watt unit is tiny because its titanium form factor allows for it to be much smaller than a glass or a quartz style heater. So it's going to fit into that little sump very, very nicely. It has an independent temperature probe and a temperature controller, and all of that comes in for $70, which is very, very nicely priced. I ran one on my previous soft coral system for a number of years with no issues whatsoever. And considering that I am trying to replicate the success I had in that tank, it seemed like a no-brainer to me. Now, last up on the items that I've asked Dave to order in for me is some rock. And I will say this is a topic that brings out some strong opinions. I can say over the years of reefing, I have used both live rock and artificial rock, as well as combinations of the two, and they both absolutely have pros and cons. I will say though, that for big systems, I do find artificial rock much easier to scape with. You can take your time and really get the shapes and things you want for without having that time pressure of killing the live rock. However, when it comes to small systems like the UN Systems R60 that we're working with today, I do find live rock to be by far and above a much better choice. One, you get all of the beautiful bacteria that comes with that rock, and including some little critters that crawl around on that rock in the early stages, so you've got something to look at while it cycles. But two, you don't have to stress about the scaping so much. Dave often gets in some really nice sized pieces of live rock that I can really just pick up and put into the tank. Sure, I can add little bits to it, little ledges and things later on down the track, but I get a really nice natural looking piece of rock with minimal effort that brings in all of that beneficial bacteria, no additional cost, plonk it in the tank and we're good to go. That being said, I have not locked myself into the corner into going down the live rock path. It's just the way I'm leaning at the moment. I will chat to Dave at my local fish shop to see what he thinks, because that man has a lot more experience than I do, and I definitely will be leaning on that experience to scape this tank. All right, that is all of the things that I had the money to order for this tank right now. There are still a few key items that I have not been able to save up for just yet, and I am working very hard on doing so. First and foremost is the skimmer. Now that is the heart of the filtration on a marine aquarium system, and I don't want to skimp on it. However, I don't have endless budget for it, so I am looking for a suitable option which is super high quality without breaking the bank. Doesn't need to be a massive skimmer because this tank is not huge, but I do want it to be of high quality and be as reliable as possible, really. I don't want this thing overflowing, and I don't want to have to work on it all the time. So a nice size skimmer that can just run in that system will be coming in the weeks to come. I do also require a light for this tank, and I am again looking for something pretty high quality for this system. There has long been a myth that leathers and soft corals don't need a lot of light, and I guess I shouldn't say it's a myth. I guess they don't need a lot of light, but over the years we have learnt that soft corals actually love a lot of light. So I want to give them a heap of PAR in this system. And whilst that may make the maintenance, because PAR equals energy, which equals growth, and quite often that shows up as algae growth on the glass and even sometimes on the rocks. That doesn't worry me. I want to put plenty of PAR in this tank, so I don't just want to go with like a little supplement light or a small little fixture. I want to go with something that has a fair bit of PAR, but I do need to be mindful that I can't spend a fortune on the light. And then lastly, the final piece of the puzzle, I think, to really get this tank up to the sort of level it's going to need to be for the next few months will be a wave maker. Whilst I don't think I need one right away, as soon as I get some corals in there, particularly some soft corals that can shed their skin and things like that, I'm gonna need a little bit of flow in the tank just to get that the flesh that's dying and peeling off the corals so they can recover and look their best as quickly as possible. So they're the three items that I still really need to save up for, but I'm hoping when I go into Deer Park Aquarium today and have a chat to Dave, he'll agree with me that we don't need those items to start the cycle, because I am mindful that it's probably going to take about 4, maybe even up to 5 or 6 weeks after the fact that I get water in this system for it to be cycled and ready for fishing corals. So I want to get onto that as quickly as possible. So I think with that in mind, it's probably time we head up the highway, go see Dave at Deer Park Aquarium and check out how my tank's going.
Hey Sam.
Hey Dave, how you doing?
Good, you?
Yeah, very well.
Ready to get cycled?
I am. I'm actually really excited to get cycled, but there's one catch. I haven't had the chance to save up enough money to buy all of the equipment for the tank yet.
That's okay. We can get the basics underway and then we can slowly add to it as we go.
So I know things like light I can probably add later, although traditionally I like to cycle the tank with the light on and get any of the uglies happening from the start.
There's 2 ways to that. If we use live rock,
yes,
light can go in at any time.
Okay.
Now, later, doesn't matter.
Yes.
If we use dry rock, it's actually better to leave it a few weeks.
Okay.
Gives the bacteria a chance to colonize on that dry rock first.
Okay, well rock-wise, I'm looking at maybe going a mixture of dry and live, so
definitely
it'll probably work out all right. The next bit of equipment that I haven't quite budgeted for yet is the skimmer. Now, is that something that I have to have on for the cycle from day one?
Again, if we're using dry rocks, no need for a skimmer for at least a couple of weeks. Give that bacteria a chance to colonize.
Yes.
With live rock, depends on the live rock. Fresh live rock, you probably want the skimmer running.
Okay.
But we've got some nice cured stuff here that we don't need that skimmer just yet.
Okay, cool. So everything I've got here should be enough with some rock, some water.
Yep.
Should be good to go.
We'll get it pumping and start that cycle.
Awesome. So I've got the Aquaforest Bio Sand. I've specifically asked you to get this in for me because it's a much whiter sand than I've used before.
It's a very sugar-like sand, so it's going to give you that extra contrast that you're looking for.
Yeah, I think against a lot of the soft corals have got a sort of a sandy colour to them anyway. So I sort of want to go as white on the sand as I can, even if it's potentially a little unnatural. Really,
and it also contains some live bacteria in there as well, so that'll help kickstart things.
It's going to help kickstart things. Also wanted to try out the Reef Factory base pump. This nice small size pump is going to fit in that chamber, controllable, just because I'm not 100% certain what sort of flow I'm going to need.
3,000 litres an hour is more than enough.
Yes.
And it gives you a little bit of headroom to run some accessories later as well.
Nice. I've gone the Aquaone titanium heater because it's got a nice little controller on it, very efficient. I know this building's pretty well temperature controlled, but
it's always something you've got to have in check.
Better to have there.
And the titanium is half the size of a 300 watt glass heater. So small tank, we save a bit extra space on the titanium heater as well.
And then this filter mat, this is not something I actually asked about. Can you tell me what's the thought process behind this?
So we've got some fresh sand. So we're going to rinse the sand.
Okay.
But no matter what, every time we rough the sand up, we rinse it, we're going to create a little bit more erosion as well. So we're going to get a bit of dusty. It's never going to be spotless. So if we just run a bit of filter floss for the first few days, any of that extra sand and sediment that goes through the system gets trapped by the filter floss. We don't risk it going through the sump, getting into the pumps, things like that.
Yeah, okay. Sounds like a plan. And the UNS Systems has a perfect tray that'll hold
that tray on the top of that filter sock.
Saves the socks clogging up. I can easily replace that out, put a fresh bit in.
Exactly.
All right, well, I think it's probably time I get this in the tank, go pick out some rock and get this thing cycling.
Let's do it.
Okay, so with the green light from Dave, I went to work at unpacking and fitting up the Reef Factory Base 3000 pump, which was super easy with the included plumbing on the UN Systems tank. Just had to fit the appropriate size barb on, attach that onto the included silicone hose. I did put some zip ties on there to make sure it was all safe, and then emptied one bag of the Aquaforest sand in there. Now, I was about to put water in the tank and I thought I probably should level it with the included level that comes with the UN Systems tank. And whilst it was close, it wasn't quite spot on. So I used the included spanner to get down here and adjust the feet. Now, this camera angle was meant to show you how easy this is to do. I now realize in editing, it really just shows how gray my hair is, but such is life. And with the tank leveled, I then got Dave to bring the hose over and we started filling the sump, which allowed me to turn the pump on and start filling up the tank. And here you can see water entering the tank. Nice and murky because we didn't rinse the sand at all, which is totally fine. And you can see here in the time lapse the system filling up. This was a good opportunity for me to grab that live rock and put that in the tank. Dave did point out if you are mixing artificial salt, it's best to do that without the rock in the tank first. But because we're using live rock and also pre-mixed natural salt water, we could put that straight in and then get to work putting the heater and things on. I also took the opportunity here to use the included ATO, and I've got to say this is quite nifty. It's definitely utilizing every square centimeter of space in that cabinet, and this little filter slash funnel works really, really well. I'm quite surprised. It's not a massive ATO reservoir, but this is not a massive tank, so hopefully this will be enough to get me through a week, and that way I don't have to rely on the guys doing it. I'll just be able to fill this up every Saturday, but we'll see how we go. I can say it was super easy to fill, and I didn't have to unplug anything or anything like that, so can't argue too much with that. Now, with all of the water in the tank, the heater on, the return pump flowing, sand in there, the rock in there, the next thing really to do was to dial in the overflow, because whenever you have water coming from the sump up into the display and then going through a weir and down, you're going to have to find the sweet spot. And you can see here the included gate valve's a bit too far open and the water level's sitting quite low. Where I'm pointing there on the pipe is about where we want the water to be. So what I'm going to do is come down here and just close off the gate valve a little bit, one small turn at a time, like a 1/10 of a turn at a time. And realistically, you should probably wait 5, 10, 15 minutes between each adjustment. But for the sake of YouTube magic, I'm going to do it a little bit quicker here. You can see it actually brought the water level up a few millimeters there. I'm going to turn it another time, so each one of those little lines on the gate valve, going to go back up and have a look and see if we're getting any closer. You can actually audibly start to hear the tank getting a little bit more quiet, but we've still got probably a centimeter of height to go, so I'll give it yet another adjustment, and hopefully we are almost in the sweet spot. Of course, you could also do this by adjusting the speed of the pump, but I'm pretty happy with the speed I have at the moment. So looking there, you can see that water is very, very close to the top of that emergency overflow, so we should be pretty well set. All right, it has been a little while since I've set a tank up, and I got to tell you, it takes a bit of work, but I am super glad to say that the UN Systems R60 is now wet, is cycling, everything is starting to happen. The system now obviously takes some time to clear up. I've just put sand in there without rinsing it whatsoever. I've put in a bit of cured live rock in there, which is obviously going to cloud the water up a little bit, but will clear quite quickly. And I've got the extra bit of floss in here, as well as the filter socks. So you can see there, the water is already, well, the floss is already taking out a bit of that, little bit of that gunk in the water, and then it'll go through to the socks. But by having that floss on top of the socks, it just allows me to do a quick change there before burning through the socks really quickly. And from now, it's really a matter of giving it some time and saving up my dollars. Next purchase will obviously be a skimmer. Down the track, we'll get a wave maker and a light on there. But for the time being, we have over here in the electrical section, we've got the Aquaone titanium heater in there. It's set at 25 degrees. It has literally just been turned on. It's already at 23 degrees, which is great. We've got the Reef Factory base pump 3000. That's only running at 65%, and it's got more than enough flow at the moment. I just want this water to turn over, stay warm, get rid of that sort of flocculant in the water, and obviously distribute all that bacteria. Now, we did get some bottles of bacteria down here with the live sand from Aquaforest. There's an A and a B. I believe one of those is an ammonia base and one of those is a bacteria base, just to help get that cycle kick-started along with the cured piece of live rock. But yeah, it's very exciting. The system's running. Just got to give some time now. I did want to get this happening because it is probably going to take somewhere in the vicinity of 4 to 6 weeks to cycle. Obviously in that time I can get those extra bits of equipment on here, but the system is now up and running, and look forward to bringing you more soon, guys. All right, guys, there you have it. At long last, my brand new soft coral tank, the UN Systems R60, has sand, it has rock, it has water, it has temperature, and it has flow from the sump to the display and back again. Everything we need to get that cycle started. And now the challenging part is upon us. We've got to wait somewhere between 4 to 6 weeks for that tank to cycle. And whilst I didn't go into huge detail in this video on what the cycle is and what to look out for, I promise we will do that in the next video of this tank. When I get the next key piece of the puzzle for this tank in, we'll have a check-in to see how the cycle's going, and I'll have a chat to Dave about some things that we need to look out for during the cycle, and of course, things we need to not overreact to. Now, I will wrap things up there, guys. I hope you are enjoying this series. If there is anything in particular that you want to see included into this new tank series, or if you have any questions on things so far, feel free to pop it in a comment in the section down below. I do personally reply to each and every comment that goes down there, so it is the best way to get hold of me, and I promise I will take your feedback on board. I want to make this tank as accessible to everyone as possible, so if I'm skipping any parts of the process that you want to see covered, please do let me know. I will give a quick shout out to these names on screen here. These are my channel members who chip in a couple of dollars each and every month to make it possible for me to bring videos like this to you here on YouTube. So a huge round of applause to each and every one of these names on screen. I humbly appreciate your support. And if you do want to support the channel but you don't have a couple of dollars to spare each month, no stress at all. I totally understand. What you can do to help me out is hit the subscribe button in the bottom corner down there. That takes 2 seconds of your time, costs no money today, no money tomorrow, no money whatsoever. Just takes a couple of seconds to hit subscribe, and that will tell the YouTube algorithm that you think this is a good video, and it should recommend it to more like-minded reefers out there. That's a huge, huge help. Anyway, guys, I will leave you with that. Thank you so much for watching. I look forward to seeing you next weekend with even more new reefing content. Till then, stay safe, keep reefing. Cheers, guys. Bye.